COVID-19 and its long-term consequences continue to pose major challenges for the Aga Khan Development Network agencies in the countries of Africa and Asia where they operate. We have seen stressed health systems, major educational disruptions, food security challenges, and backsliding in gender equality. But thanks to you and your support, combined with the extraordinary leadership of the people in the communities where we're working, we have been able to mount a very significant response, rebuilding health systems, training healthcare workers, equipping facilities, working with teachers and school systems to help them deal with the new learning needs that have emerged, working to support those who are most economically hit by the crisis with the support they need. But even now, we know that the longer term consequences are going to be significant. We are going to need to help rebuild these health systems. We're going to have to create stronger education systems. We are now looking to the future. And as we look to the future, we'll need your support so we can continue to build a quality of life for these communities that they can look to the future with confidence.
Yai Math, everyone. Brew your chai, grab your naan katai. It's time for season 2 of Friday Night Reflections.
Welcome, bienvenue, we're back. Thank you so much for joining us for this first episode of this new season of Friday Night Reflections, or FNR. I'm your host, Hus Madavji, and I'm excited to be hosting the season premiere. I'm coming in from Toronto, where the leaves are providing a vivid reminder that the summer is past and that regardless of pandemics or whatever else is going on, the world continues to spin. So I know that life isn't the same as it was in March of 2020. So we're changing up FNR in response. And you'll notice tonight, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but you will notice in-person conversations, as well as people exiting out of their homes. It gets pretty surreal. Now, given the sheer difficulty in remembering how to go outside, and with Jamat Khan is now open across the country, FNR will now air once per month. But don't worry, it'll be available on demand so you can get your FNR hit every week if you need it. Though we will be spacing out our episodes, we will continue to bring topical, thought-provoking, and entertaining programming, as we do. Now, it's been a while since we've been together, and so much has happened here in Canada since we were last together. In August, Parliament was dissolved and an election was called. It was a short campaign with an unprecedented number of Ismailis running for office and participating in our election as campaign volunteers, staff, and election workers. My dad included. I'm so proud of that young man. I actually, went to the voting booth, stood in line so I could get to him. I forgot my ID. I'm like, big deal, it's my dad. Like, Dad, you know where I live. He just looked at me, disappointed. Like, how could you, son? Anyways, I walked home, picked up my ID, brought him a cup of masala chai, and we're good. I just want to share that story. I want to also acknowledge all of our Ismaili candidates who ran for a variety of political parties, including Imtiaz Poppet, Liki Labji, and Rosina Jaffer. And also, I want to extend a special congratulations to 2 Jamati members who were elected to serve their constituents in the House of Commons. Talib Nur Muhammad and Arif Virani, they do us proud. We also have some talented Ismailis running in local elections occurring in Alberta very soon. Now, you know who isn't running for re-election? Naheed Nenshi. After 11 years, Mayor Nenshi is hanging up his chain of office. But before his successor is selected on Monday, we asked him to reflect on his time in office, what thoughts he has for the Jamat, any prospective youth who want to follow his path, and how he sees the Jamat contributing to build their communities and country in the decades ahead. Naheed.
Well, thank you, Hussein Yalimadat, everyone. Welcome back to Friday Night Reflections. I'm standing here on this ridge above the Bow River, over a place that the Blackfoot people have for thousands of years called Mokinstis, the elbow, the place where two rivers come together. And since time immemorial, people have come to this place. They've been drawn here by that water. It's a pretty dry place, and the water brings life. And so for thousands of years, people have come here to hunt and fish and trade, to live, to love, to dream, to dance, to fight sometimes. Sounds like a typical Kusheli at Franklin Jamat kind of. But ultimately, to engage in that very real act of building community. My family came to this country in 1971. My father had read about Canada because he met some people who worked for the Canadian International Development Agency in Arusha, Tanzania, where they were. And Dad used to read the newspapers they got, the Toronto Star. And he read about the opening of the City Hall in Toronto. And he really wanted to see that building. He was just excited to see how such a tall building could be kind of round. And he said, one day, I'm going to go to this Canada and I'm going to see that building. And they did. My mother was pregnant with me. They took the first flight of their lives to go to my aunt and uncle's wedding in London to represent the big family. And because they didn't have access to Google Maps or apparently an atlas, they decided that if they were going to London anyway, they may as well come to Canada. I'm not sure they knew how far that was. They landed in Toronto in June 1971. And over that time, there were very few Ismailis, there were very few South Asians at all, if you can imagine that, in Toronto. They used to have Friday Jamat kind of services in the basement of someone's home. Those were tough times. My family had very little money. Mom was pregnant with me and then a newborn. They sent for my sister, who was 3 years old when she got here. And every Friday morning, Mom would take the sheets off the beds and wash them, and then hang them to dry because there wasn't a nickel for the dryer. And hope that they would dry in time because she would bundle them up and take them and the baby and the toddler and take the subway and go to Jamatkana. And those sheets were used to put over the pots to lend a bit of dignity to that space. Just a few months later, we saw the influx of the Ismailis from Uganda, and that little group who barely knew how to get along themselves suddenly found themselves looking after tens of thousands of people. Shortly after that, I was about 18 months old. I did my research, I read my briefing books, and I said the future is in the West. So we packed up all our belongings in a 1974 Dodge Dart, and we drove across the country. And we landed here, Mokinstis, Calgary, this place where people have been building community for so very long. And the story that follows is a very typical Ismaili immigrant story. It's a story of sacrifice. It's a story of struggle. It's a story of seva, of service, and ultimately a story of success. And 38 years later, my dad, who wanted to see that City Hall in Toronto just before he passed away, got to be in a very different City Hall just beyond those big buildings there and see his son sworn in as mayor. And for the last 11 years, I've had the opportunity to conduct seva in that way, to conduct seva in public life. The theme of tonight's Friday Night Reflections is making the world a better place. And that's what we have the opportunity to do every single day. Some of us will run for public office. And I hope many more run for public office. And hey, by the way, congratulations to the 2 Ismaili members of parliament who were just elected in the last election. Some of us will do work within our own Ismaili community, and we will find that the place to express our seva. And I've never been prouder than all of my time as mayor to understand the real value and impact of the seva of the Ismaili community. Many of us will find ways to do seva outside of the Ismaili community for the greater community, locally, nationally, and internationally. All of that matters. Because right now we live in a world in crisis. Of course, we have a pandemic and a public health crisis, which has been so hard on all of us and all of our Jamat for so very long. We have a mental health and addictions crisis that we're only just starting to talk about, and we're only just starting to talk about in our Jamat. 1 in 5 of us will struggle with mental illness at some point in our lives. 5 out of 5 of us will struggle with our own mental health. And it's time for us to take a better community-based approach on how we can do a better job. We have an economic crisis. As you've heard from President Kassim-Lakha so often, the nature of work and the future of work is changing. And we have to figure out how to position ourselves, our children, and our families in a transitioning economy, in an economy that won't look the same 5 years from now than it looked before. And of course, standing here looking at that river, we can't not talk about the climate crisis and the environmental crisis that we face in stewarding our air, our land, our water, all of Allah's creation. And here in Canada, we're also coming to a reckoning on what I call the issue of equity. How do we go from being a place that is multicultural and diverse and pluralistic to a place that is truly anti-racist? How do we, as settlers on this land and recent settlers on this land, take deep into our hearts the concept of not just reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, but reconciliation? How do we make sure that everyone in our community can walk the path of prosperity together? How do we deal with economic equity? Even in our Jamat, there is great income inequity, and we never talk about that either. We paper it over. What do we do to make sure that every single person who works in this society can work a decent job and make a decent living and do well by their families? How do we fight poverty everywhere we see it? It has been the great, great honor of my life over the last 11 years to be able to work on these issues. I'm only going to be mayor for another week or so, but I hope that I will still be part of the story of this province, of the city, of this country going forward. I hope that I will find a way to do seva, hopefully outside of politics. But I want to tell you all that in all the great moments of the last 11 years, in being the first Ismaili Muslim elected official in the West to welcome Hazrat Imam to his city, in opening great public spaces, in building better lives for Calgarians, all of that has been driven by the fact that it's not just politicians with microphones making speeches who make a difference in our community. It's every single one of us. Very early on in my term, we launched a program called 3 Things for Calgary. Over the course of the centennial, the sesquicentennial of Canada, that became 3 Things for Canada. And today, I'd like to relaunch that with you. It's a very simple program. It just means that every single one of us needs to do at least 3 acts of community service every single year. It can be something small. Shovel your neighbor's walk. It can be something big. Take a leadership role in the IVC. Doesn't matter if it's big or small. What matters is that it's service. What matters is that it is seva. Because we are all called upon to be sevadari, those who give service. I just say human beings. When my parents came to this country, they instilled some very basic values in me and in my sister. The absolute ethic of seva. No matter how little you have, others have less. The dignity of every single human being and the need to leave it better than you found it. I've been extraordinarily blessed, as we all have, to live in this place, to live on this land, on this Mokinstis. We live in the best place in the world, but we have the chance to make it even better. 11 years ago, I started by talking about the very simple promise of our community. That this is a place where, regardless of what you look like, regardless of where you come from, regardless of how you worship, regardless of whom you love, you belong here. You're safe here. You have opportunity here. Your children and their children and their children will live incredible lives here. It has been the privilege of my life to be able to go to work every single day to fulfill that promise. And I want to thank every single one of you for all of your support before, during, and I hope after that time. I never would have been able to do this without a community standing behind me, without a community willing to take a risk on me and a risk on a better future. And for that, I am deeply, deeply grateful. So as our stories continue, I know one thing for sure. We live in the best place in the world, and together we're going to make it even better.
Thank you, Mayor Nenshi, for that reflection, and congratulations on an incredible run. Also, while we were away, we had the start of a new school year, and with it, a new Beit al-Ilm term. We reached out to a few BUI students to see what they love about the program.
Every Saturday morning, I'm excited for my Beit al-Ilm class. I'm excited to learn what it means to be an Ismaili Muslim. I'm excited to learn about Prophet Muhammad, our religion, and our history. I do fun activities like dancing and exercising. I learn about my faith and Tariqa Ismaili Muslim. Do fun homework. I get to play games. Hippo's journey, he flew to Mecca, Medina, Cairo, and lots of other places. And then after we had to draw about it, build our own city, and then write about it. I learned about Allah, our prophets, and our imams. Prophet Muhammad was very kind, and he helped everybody, and I made my own Kaaba, which is cute. To stay home, and we can even wear pajamas sometimes, and we can even have some snacks. That I can play with my brother the last millisecond, and then I get to go on then I get to go on Zoom, and then I get to see my friends and my teachers. I cannot wait to attend Beit al-Ilm class in Jamat. To actually meet my teacher, to have lunch there, and to play with my friends. Eating those yummy snacks that we used to eat in in-person class. And doing crafts together, and painting together, and seeing our friends in real life. I can meet my friends in person and do crafts with them, and help each other.
That does sound exciting. You know, I used to teach BUI back in the day. I mean, way back in the day. Such fond memories. That was a great gig. If you have a child between the ages of 3 and 17, you can still register for BUI at iicanada.org/BUI. And just a few weeks ago, Ismailis across the country and around the world came together for the first ever Global Ismaili Civic Day. Global Ismaili Civic Day was a weekend when the Jamat around the world put our ethics of civic engagement and good citizenship in action to unite around our centuries-old tradition of serving humanity and enriching the lives of the communities in which we live. This international endeavor, it reflects the community's ethic of civic engagement and good citizenship, exemplifying Islam's core values of service, peace, compassion, and care for the vulnerable. On Global Ismaili Civic Day, we came together to participate in a diverse array of activities that occurred simultaneously, uniting the global Jamat's efforts in its service to humanity. Now, the two themes for the 2021 Global Ismaili Civic Weekend were environmental stewardship and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some activities that Ismailis participated in across Canada included food sorting at the Greater Vancouver Food Bank, vegetable harvesting at the UBC Farm, sorting and packing of food and school supplies at Jamat, tree planting and park cleanup in Edmonton, lunch and dinner preparation, service and cleanup for the homeless in Calgary, Grow Calgary, harvesting crops that will be donated to local agencies supporting the vulnerable, shoreline cleanup at the Pinhay Sand Dunes, and a park cleanup at Canal de la Chine. Thank you to all the volunteers who participated and to everyone who each day acts as an ambassador of our faith, demonstrating our values and principles through your everyday lives. Another thing we've missed over the summer break is the reassuring presence of President Amir. Well, the wait is over. Please join me in welcoming Council for Canada, President Kassim-Lakha, to bring us up to speed.
My dear brothers and sisters, Yalimudat. Welcome to our second season of Friday Night Reflections. We are transitioning our program to a cadence of airing once a month so we can continue to keep our Jamat connected through this digital platform. As we usher the fall season, we have much reason for optimism. Though the pandemic continues to impact many of us, as vaccination rates have increased, we have started living a modified version of pre-pandemic life. This is cause for hope that we will continue to advance such that we can soon leave this period behind, inshallah. I would like to convey the Jamati institution's deep respect and appreciation for the Jamat's patience at every stage of the pandemic. Throughout Jamat Khana openings, closings, adherence to protocols, and changes in Jamat Khana capacity, the Jamat has been supportive and understanding, and we thank you for this. We admire and we value our Jamat's resilience in the face of adversity. I would like to express our deepest shukrana for Maulana Hazrat Imam's continual guidance and holding our hand through this difficult period. In his message to the Jamaat this week, he expressed his happiness that in the face of the ongoing pandemic, the Jamaat is continuing to undertake measures recommended by health authorities to mitigate risks, particularly by accepting to be vaccinated as soon as the opportunity becomes available. Maulana Hazrat Imam went further in saying that he wishes all of us to remain constantly mindful of the importance of maintaining good health in all aspects of human life. This is Maulana Hazrat Imam's call on us to take care of the totality of our health, which includes our physical well-being, our mental health, and our spiritual well-being. As the Jamaat is aware, at the present time, the active cases of COVID are highest in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Concerns remain with respect to new variants and respiratory illnesses, especially through the winter months. Continued vigilance is required, especially amongst the immune compromised. We urge the Jamaat to continue to take all necessary precautions and measures to protect vulnerable family members. I would like to take this opportunity to thank members of our Jamaat and families who have contributed to our Jamati Services Fund, JSF, the campaign which is currently underway. We pray for your barakat, success and happiness. As you know, many new Jamati priorities and funding needs have emerged as a result of the pandemic. We seek the support of all Jamati families to meet our program and financial requirements. The JSF campaign has been extended to enable the participation of all families. We pray that you find peace and comfort in supporting the activities of the Jamaat at this critical time. I would like to reiterate Maulana Hazrat Imam's message that he would like our Jamaat to emerge from the pandemic in a better situation than before. The pandemic has brought forward many new opportunities in education, careers, and entrepreneurship. Some in our Jamaat are able to see these opportunities and take advantage. Others require support in identifying and assessing opportunities. The Jamaat institutions are here to assist. We have informed the Jamaat about our Future Ready initiative, through which we are making available extensive professional and volunteer resources for individuals and families to tap into. The Future Ready initiative is offering a range of counseling services and retraining opportunities to help the Jamat plan and reimagine a new future, including supporting newcomers to Canada. I want to highlight a few critical items to consider. The prerequisite to successful settlement in Canada is English or French language literacy. Without literacy, the trajectory to successful settlement is difficult for newcomers. Early investment in vocational training is also essential. A vast array of re-credentialing opportunities have become available for us to take advantage of. Networking and connecting with mentors at every opportunity can be very meaningful. We all need mentors at different stages of our lives. Many of our young adults who have joined the 10,000 Chais program have found it particularly useful to connect with leading-edge thinkers in the country. Mental health is an utmost priority, with communities facing stresses everywhere. These stresses are rooted in modern life and are compounded by social isolation from COVID. We must encourage conversation and acceptance of mental health conditions so that over time, in our Jamaat, we minimize stigma, we promote timely access to care, and we build resilience within families. In conclusion, let us express shukrana for the blessing we have received from Maulana Haj Imam, for Mushkil Asan, for Rouhani members, and the safety and security of the entire Jamaat, and for his reminder that we are always in his heart, in his thoughts, and in his prayers. I want to thank all our volunteers, badged and unbadged, no matter which institution you serve or personal service you render. You are continuing to render outstanding services at an important time in our lives, and as a Jamaat, we owe you our deep gratitude and prayers for success. Thank you and Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, President Saib, for those thoughts and insights. As you can tell, our show this evening is following a theme: how we can make our world a better place, whether it is through participation in the electoral process, learning about our faith and practice, or Ismaili Civic. There are many ways for each of us to act in our own way to help make our lives and those of our neighbors better. Of course, Maulana Haj Imam established the Aga Khan Development Network to improve the quality of life in the regions in which it operates. Here to provide insight into how the AKDN's work has changed in light of the pandemic and how each of us can get involved to support Maulana Haj Imam's institutions is Khalil Shariff, CEO of AKFC. Khalil?
The last 18 months have been difficult ones for many of us in Canada as we've had to struggle to deal with all the implications and the uncertainties of the global pandemic. But of course, it's been a difficult time for every part of the world, including all the parts of the world where the AKDN agencies are operating. I think we've learned a few things from this crisis and the response. I think the first thing we've learned is how important strong institutions are to our ability to sustain a quality of life, especially at a moment of crisis. It's been incredible how many institutional supports have been so actively mobilized in Canada to help us deal with all the difficulties that the COVID-19 crisis has raised. Of course, those institutions don't exist always in the parts of the world where the AKDN is operating, and I think one of the things we've learned is how important those strong institutions are at a time of crisis. But I think we've learned something else. I think the global pandemic has reminded us how interdependent the world is, how tied together we are, that something that happens very, very far away physically can affect us so severely and urgently here at home. But we have two choices as we grapple with that understanding and that realization of our interdependence. One is we can decide that we're all going to be in this for ourselves, and the other is that we are all in this together. Even articulating that choice makes it clear what is the only ethically tenable and practically possible choice here. We have to realize and choose to act with the conviction that as a world, we're all in this together. We have been able to get through this crisis because we've been able to rely on such strong institutions. And it has become yet again clear what an extraordinary gift the Imam has given us and the world in building the Aga Khan Development Network agencies. These institutions represent not only an important practical contribution to the world, they embody an ethical ideal of making a difference, of drawing on the best knowledge available in the world and bringing it to the people who need it most. And the Jamat has been at the very center of this effort. The task ahead of us now is not just to strengthen these institutions, but also to mobilize the country in the service of these institutions. They are incredibly cherished to the Jamaat, for sure. But the ethical ideals that they represent are cosmopolitan ideals. They bring people together. They unite Canadians from all walks of life. And our challenge, our responsibility, the invitation we've received is to now go out and mobilize the country, to invite our friends and our colleagues and our co-workers to participate in this extraordinary expression of global generosity, of ethical commitment, and really of Canadian values. So this year we'll be taking you on a virtual voyage, so you can see firsthand some of the extraordinary work that has been accomplished, not only over the last 18 months during this crisis, but that we have done over the decades of support that has been provided by Canadians. We'll travel to Kenya, to Tanzania, to Mozambique, to Pakistan. You'll meet the frontline leaders in the communities where we're working, the change makers, who are shaping with their fellow citizens a future of confidence for themselves and their families. You'll meet youth advocates working on gender issues. You'll find and meet extraordinary healthcare leaders who are mobilizing the best knowledge they have access to serve their communities. This year, we've got a new app that you can download that will be able to track your steps, so you can actually take the spirit of the walk that was so alive when we were able to gather together, but to sustain it, even though we might not be physically together, to keep that active and vibrant spirit of the walk alive. You can address and meet some of the physical challenges embedded in the app to bring your friends and colleagues together in a fun way, but with a very, very serious message, which is that we can be together a better world. And that's a core idea that I think you'll be able to share with Canadians from across the country. And we're relying on the Jamat to take this heartbeat, this ethical pulse, and share it with the country, especially at this difficult moment. So this year, I'm asking you to join us yet again, and maybe with even more energy, given the difficult time we find ourselves in the world, and to register, to invite your friends and colleagues and co-workers to join us on the virtual voyage, and to express our ongoing and unyielding ethical commitment to reach across borders, to make a contribution to the world, and to tell Canada, Canadians, and indeed the world that when we work together, better is possible.
Thank you, Khalil, for that insight into the important work Haji Imam is undertaking and the reminder that the World Partnership Walk is one way that we can support that work, not only by participating, but by spreading the message that this work is truly reflective of our values, not just as Shia Ismaili Muslims, but as Canadians. You can register to participate in this year's virtual walk by visiting worldpartnershipwalk.com or downloading the World Partnership Walk app for your mobile device. We will end our program with our soulful sounds. Tonight, we have a contemporary song composed by Aman Balak, entitled Walk With Me. Now, I know this young man. He's such a talent. I'm so proud to be introducing him. This piece was created to help foster a sense of community as we experienced the distance created by the pandemic. The composer, Aman, sought to create harmonies and musical layers that complemented each other and represent the diversity of our Jamat, as well as the beautiful work we can create when we join together. The various artists who came together to develop this piece hope that every individual in our Jamat remembers the ability of our community to overcome obstacles and hardships whenever they hear this song. I hope you all enjoy it, and thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Some people wonder, what's the world coming to? Their days are empty of all the hope that they once knew. We're of the people with faith, this will pass if we dare to do our part. And we will rise as the shadows fall, together fight although we lost. Our hopes and dreams will carry us. So come on now, walk with me. Oh, 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 walk with me. Come on now, walk with me. Oh, walk with me. Oh. Some people ask, what difference could I make? One act of kindness cannot undo the world's mistakes. We're of the people